Hello, my name is Mateo, and the site I chose was Meadows. So, about the site, Meadows is located on the island of Newfoundland off the coast of eastern Canada. It is the site of a Norse village which is dated around 990 to 1050 CE. And LAM, the acronym for Lansdowne Meadows, is the site of the first European contact with North America. So, it was built around 400 years before Columbus. The site's earliest inhabitants can be dated back to approximately 4000 BCE, and the most notable of these groups was the Dorset, who occupied the area approximately 200 years before the Norse, but there was never any overlap between Aboriginal peoples or the Norse at LAM. So, being on an island, LAM is a coastal area, and much of the surrounding area is open grasslands, and the area is abundant with peat and peat bogs. However, when the Norse first settled the area, it was forested, and many of the trees were used as building materials for buildings and boats. Much of the site was buried under mounds of peat after the Norse abandoned it, which is very good at preserving organic material. So, this kept the site and many of the ecofacts and artifacts that were used to research it largely intact. So the site consists of 8 structures built in the same style, sod placed over a wood frame structure. So this is the same style that was found in villages in Greenland and Iceland that were also built by the Norse. And the structures include 3 different dwellings, 1 forge, and 4 workshops, and they all overlook a peat bog. So the Norse buildings were discovered in 1960 by Anthro Higstad and her husband Elge Hingstad. Uh, the discovery was inspired by the Vinland sagas, which are a series of semi-fictional stories written by the Norse about their discovery of North America, and the couple used descriptions from the stories to locate the village. Anstein Hingstad led the first excavation of the site. During this first excavation, the archaeologists compared features and artifacts that were common in the other Norse villages in Iceland and Greenland to the ones found at LAM to confirm the origins of the village. So they used the building design, the sod placed over the wood frame, and they also found tools like spindles and stone oil lamps that were at both villages. And then they also used a bronze pin, which was commonly found in these Norse villages and used as to sort of fasten cloaks. And so these allowed them to confirm that LAM was a Norse settlement. And this was the first time that archaeologists could confirm that Europeans had sailed to North America before Columbus did, which was a new finding. So since then, there have been both academic and cultural resource management excavations of LAM. So the first was from 1960 to 1968 by Anstein Hingstad, and then Parks Canada ordered 2 more from 1973 to 1975, and then in 1976 by Bent Stombach and then Bridget Wallace. And after each excavation, the archaeologists reburied the site to protect and conserve its natural resources. Since then, there have been more, but were not ordered by Parks Canada. So some stakeholders at the site would be local Aboriginal Canadians, since Aboriginal artifacts have been found there, the Beothuk and Quebec Inuit artifacts to be exact, and then Norse descendants, but these people may be hard to find since the settlement was temporary, and so the descendants could have ended up at a number of places that the Norse ended up settling at. And unfortunately, there was no record of either of these populations being consulted for any of the excavations. Other stakeholders would be the Canadian government, who named it a National Historic Site of Canada, and then UNESCO, who named it a World Heritage Site in 1978. So before 2019, archaeologists believed that LAM was only inhabited for a relatively short period of time. But in 2019, archaeologists associated with the PNAS sampled a nearby peat bog and analyzed its pollen content and ecofacts like charcoal, wood debitage, and charred plant remains, and they came to a different conclusion. The data suggested that there was a potentially longer period of time in which LAM was inhabited, so up to 195 years. However, this doesn't mean that there was continuous occupation. It was likely sporadic and used as more of a port and then village to repair ships and such. But still, these findings have shaken up the consensus since it was largely believed that LAM was inhabited for a much shorter period of time. So some future research that I think should be done at the site would be to further study the most recent Native American populations at LAM, which the 2019 study found ranged from around 710 to 1815 CE, but not continuously, sporadically like the Norse. The Vinland sagas do contain encounters with native peoples, however, there's no confirmed evidence that this ever happened. So it would be important to both study these native artifacts to learn more about these indigenous peoples and also where they had gone when the Norse arrived and why the area was inhabited so sporadically, and to see if there's any real evidence of interactions between them and the Norse. And then finally, it would be important to examine the extent of North American travel conducted by the Norse at Newfoundland. So the Vinland Saga suggested that they traveled to other areas of North America, but uh, it is not confirmed. There's no evidence for this. So, like the Instads, it'd be useful to use the sagas to find potential sites that they may have explored, and then uh, excavate LAM in order to see if there's any ecofacts or artifacts that aren't native to Newfoundland and may have been brought back from other expeditions around North America. So that was my presentation, and thank you for listening.